Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to this evening's live stream. Apologies, Sheikh Hassan, could you please mute your microphone? Jazakallah khair. Welcome again to this evening's live stream. My name is Amanda and I'm going to be your host this evening. Today we're going to be discussing a new guidance that is being published by the BBSI, which is working with Muslim converts, a guidance. And we have with us Sheikh Hassan, Sheikh Abdul Haq Bewley, and Sheikh Bilal Brown, who will be discussing this with us today. Before we begin, I'd just like to give a bit of an introduction to the BBSI. So the BBSI, or the British Board of Scholars and Imams, is an apolitical national assembly of imams, traditional scholars, and Islamically literate Muslim academics, formed to facilitate scholarly intra-Muslim research and dialogue. The aim is to produce authoritative ethico-theological guidance and leadership on matters relevant to Muslims, whilst promoting wider community welfare. The BBSI primarily seeks to do this by developing theological leadership that can authentically represent the rich scholarly inheritance of Islam, whilst representing flexibly the context of modern times. Its ultimate aim is to both serve and represent the Muslim community in an ethical, inclusive, professional, and scholar-led way. The BBSI especially takes seriously the responsibility to provide theologically grounded, practically focused, holistic, and above all, cool-headed and far-sighted guidance to the community in times of generalized anxiety and panic. This guidance aims to provide practical advice and support for mosques and Muslim community organizations, as well as imams and scholars in the UK, in how to better care for and support new converts to Islam. The document draws on the experiences and insights of both converts and established members of the Muslim community, as well as Islamic teachings and principles. It covers a wide range of topics, including the importance of creating welcoming and inclusive environments for converts, addressing common challenges and difficulties that converts may face, and providing ongoing support and guidance as they navigate their new faith and identity. The guidance also explores the responsibilities of the wider Muslim community in supporting converts and the potential benefits that can be gained from greater engagement with this group. The BBSI hopes that this guidance will contribute to the ongoing efforts to promote greater understanding and inclusivity within the Muslim community in the UK and to support the spiritual and emotional well-being of new converts. And I will note that the guide is available to download on the BBSI website, the link to which can be found in the chat, in the comments. So to kick off our panel discussion, first up we have Sheikh Hassan. Sheikh Hassan is a consultant counseling psychologist, at the Gift Foundation, a doctorate resident in psychology and a resident scholar at Darul Ihsan. And he is co-chair of the BBSI currently. Sheikh Hassan, would you like to give some comments on this new guidance that's been published?
Thank you, Sister Amanda. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasul Kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma la sahla illa ma ja'altahu sahla wa anta taj'alul hazna idha shi'ta sahla. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid wa ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. My dear respected brothers and sisters watching this live webinar. Many Muslims in the UK, in particular in the West and the UK, arrived probably in the a large number of them early 50s, 60s. But we know from historians and recorded notes that Islam arrived in the UK hundreds of years before, people embracing Islam. And one of the most prominent figure within the British Muslim scene is Sheikh Abdullah Quriyam, who was given the title of Sheikh al-Islam of the British Isles, who was based in Liverpool. So as Muslims began to grow, large number of Muslims in the UK also began to embrace Islam. Mosques were developed, established, institutions were developed, organizations were developed and established. However, there were, in terms of catering for the provisions of new Muslims and their specific requirements and challenges that they may face initially when they embrace Islam, especially given if it is a challenging context that they live in. Unfortunately, we've not seen many dedicated, devoted organizations or institutions that cater for Muslims who people who embrace Islam. Alhamdulillah, now things are beginning to change. There's more research, there's more institutions, organizations, and we felt at the BBSI for a number of years now, in order for us to navigate this and try and provide guidance to the Muslim community, to imams and scholars, to mosques, organizations, and how they can facilitate people who are coming into the faith, people who are embracing the religion of Islam, and facilitate their, if you like, conversion in the most kind of comforting and peaceful, accommodating manner. So the guidance tackles a number of different issues that perhaps most people, a lot of people discuss online. For example, is there a requirement for someone to testify the Shahada in Arabic, or is it sufficient to say it in English? Do you have to get the person to stand in front of the whole congregation and record it in a video, or is that recommendation, or people just do without really understanding? So all of those different issues have been tackled within the guidance, and guidance is not exhaustive. There's so many other things that could be mentioned, but hopefully in the future guidances that we will develop will tackle other aspects and other areas. One of the key features of the BBSI is an ecumenical national board of imams, scholars, and Islamically literate Muslim academics. So the BBSI has muftis, has doctors, has psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, chaplains, academics, professionals, practitioners, who are both, focused on theory and academics, but also practitioners within the community. The BBSI, in more or less, tries to provide guidance, not necessarily give fatwa, although BBSI has muftis and BBSI has experts. But we try to provide guidance. So during the pandemic and post-pandemic, a number of different topics and issues that were affecting the Muslim community, where people asked the community, different organizations asked the BBSI, what is the mainstream Orthodox Sunni position of the scholars? And so BBSI is in a unique position. It is the only organization that is scholarly led, which is ecumenical, diverse in its theological makeup, in its ethnic makeup, in its gender makeup, as both male and also female. So there is no other organization like that within the UK. So alhamdulillah, the BBSI has been doing a number of different projects, and hopefully will continue and develop. And with your support, with your dua, with your getting involved, inshallah, the BBSI can hopefully be a beacon of mainstream Sunni Islam within the British Muslim community, not just for new Muslim, but everyone within the UK. So with that kind of vision, with that understanding in mind, we develop this guidance. You can download from the bbsi.org.uk website, inshallah, and hopefully throughout the webinar you'll be able to ask questions and comments, and the speakers will be able to, inshallah, answer any questions that you have. One other thing that, before I forget, I need to really emphasize is that BBSI is very diverse in its orientation, in the sense that individuals come from different Sunni madhahibs, different Sunni schools of thought. So in the guidance you'll find certain kind of directions, but generally perhaps some people will disagree, right? They'll have a different orientation, and that is fine, as long as we stick within the broad spectrum of Sunni Orthodox mainstream Islam. That is the vision of the BBSI. So we celebrate diversity in that sense. and we encourage different opinions, and our motto is, a unity of purpose and not uniformity of opinion. Unity of purpose. Our purpose is to serve God Almighty in this country. Our purpose is to give da'wah to the wider population, wider inhabitants, citizens of this land. Our purpose and mission is to spread the orthodox Sunni mainstream position of Islam within these lands. And we can have different opinions in terms of our fiqhi orientation, in terms of our da'wah, how the details of da'wah. That's all fine. Historically, scholars for hundreds, thousands of years, they've disagreed, and we will not be able to unite the scholars and masajid and the Muslim population in one madhab, as long as we remain within the broad umbrella parameters of Sunni Islam, which promotes orthodox mainstream views. Diversity is celebrated within the BBSI, inshallah. So do please check out the guidance. You can read it, upload it, inshallah, download it, inshallah. This guidance essentially is for imams and scholars, mosques, community organizations, and particularly those who are involved in da'wah in the street or other places, inviting people to Islam. So I want to thank in particular Sister Amanda Morris for giving up her time during these blessed days and nights of Ramadan, for hosting, and all the, Sheikh Bilal and Sheikh Abdul Bewley for also giving up their time to speak on this very important topic. And hopefully this is first of many webinars and guidances that the BBSI will develop in trying to help and support our new brothers and sisters in faith. I have to apologize. I will have to leave because I'm not feeling very well. I've been very unwell. So inshallah, Sheikh Abdul Bewley, Sheikh Bilal Brown and Amanda Morris, inshallah, will continue their webinar until next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Hassan, for your kind words. And I mean, from my part, it's an absolute honor to host this session. So moving along, I will now introduce Sheikh Abdul Haq Bewley, who is also co-chair of the BBSI along with Sheikh Hassan. Sheikh Abdul Haq is the Sheikh of the Darqawi Shadili Qadiri Tariqa, and is also translator of the Noble Quran, a new rendering of its meanings in English, as well as many other works. Sheikh Abdul Haq, would you be able to give us a few words, please?
Assalamu alaikum to all who are present at this webinar. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam taslima. I want to first of all thank you, Amanda, for overseeing this webinar, and you, Sheikh Bilal, in your recent arrival in Morocco. Sheikh Bilal is joining us from Morocco, where he's arrived about 10 minutes ago, I believe. Anyway, it's very good to see you, because of course I have a strong connection with Morocco from having become Muslim there 55 years ago. So I was a bit confused hearing I was a new Muslim. I know that's one of the terms that's given to people who become Muslim, is a new Muslim, but I think I've been Muslim longer than most of the Muslims in this country have been alive. So I'm not exactly new. Obviously, when we're talking 55 years ago, when I first became Muslim all that time ago in Fez, came back to this country. I came back to a country where where there are almost, I think the number of mosques that were here could be counted probably on one hand. I mean, there were very, very few mosques, and and the Muslim community was basically unknown. Nobody really knew about the Muslim community in this country at that time, although there were quite a lot of Muslims in the country already by that time, but they were by no means established at that time. So when we became Muslim, I became Muslim in the company of Sheikh Abdul Qadir, a Sufi, who died, recently died, rahimahullah ta'ala, may Allah have mercy on him. And he became Muslim in Morocco, came back to England. I met him and I traveled with him to Morocco a little bit later. That was in the summer of 1968. And I became Muslim there with the Imam of the Karawin Mosque in Fes. And together we met a great alim, a Moroccan alim called Sheikh Mohammed Ibn al-Habib, who lived in Meknes. And he sent, when we left there, we met him and we were there for a few days. And when we left, he said to Sheikh Abdul Qadir, he said, he gave him some gifts and said, take Islam to your people. So that was with that intention that we returned to this country, and our understanding of Islam was that it had to be part of a community. So people who became Muslim with us, and there were quite a number of people who became Muslim in that early time, they didn't become Muslim by themselves. They became Muslim and became part of a fledgling Muslim community. And I think this is very important to realize when we're talking about people becoming Muslim, that it's very difficult to be Muslim on an individual basis without any support. And certainly that experience that we had of coming together as a community and learning Islam together with the help from others who were more experienced Muslims than us was a great benefit for us. And I think it's something that should be taken on board for all people who become Muslim in this country. Part of the guidance I know talks about mentors, and to become Muslim without a strong one-to-one mentorship is very difficult. I've discovered that through experience that when people become Muslim, they have as it were, a window of opportunity of some months, which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala gives people, in which they can establish themselves in Islam. And if they do that, then they remain strongly connected with the Deen and go on as Muslims for a long period of time. But if that doesn't happen, and they're neglected, and they don't have strong mentorship during that early time, when they have to learn the basics of the Deen, how to do wudu, how to do the prayer, the Fatiha, all the early basic things. If that doesn't happen in that first period of time, it's really difficult. When a strong wind blows, they tend to be blown away with it. So it's very important that that mentorship in the early period of time is a really important aspect of becoming Muslim in this country. And so it's responsibility of the people who accept people as Muslims in mosques and other places to make sure that mentorship, that some one-to-one teaching is available for people who come to them as Muslims, and not just that they must not be neglected and left by themselves. I remember how shocked I was, and this is partly, I say, but partly because the people in the Muslim community are not always open to other people becoming Muslim with them, and sometimes it's just people go to a mosque, and the people of that mosque are not quite sure what they're there for, and it's very difficult for them to connect to the people of that place. And I remember being very, very shocked some years after I became Muslim, when I became aware that not only did the people who of the Muslim community already established in this country were not able to really deal with people becoming Muslim, but actually I discovered in the case of a very important and well-known organization, Muslim organization that was established here, that they actually didn't want people to become Muslims, and that was a shocking thing because I think the situation now is not that anymore, but there is an aspect of people being established in a community which does not make them open to people coming to them to become Muslim, and the opposite to that was is a very well-known scholar in Bradford, where I now live, where I'm sitting, and he was due to come. He's from a family of scholars in Pakistan, and he was due to be sent to this country. And his sheikh said to him, his teacher said to him, "There is only one reason for you to go to Britain, and that is to call the people there to Islam. You have no other valid reason for going to Britain than calling people to Islam." And he took that on seriously, and he's done it, and many people have become Muslim. Of course, people have come here for various reasons, but that has to be taken on board by the Muslims here, that part of their being here must be to present the face of Islam to the people of this country, as Sheikh Hassan said earlier, and to make people welcome to Islam, because what other reason have we for being in this world other than the worship of Allah? As our Lord says in the Quran, "Ma khalaqtu jinna wal ins illa liya'budun." I only created men and jinn to worship me, and the only valid way to worship the Lord of existence is by becoming a Muslim. So the Muslims themselves are responsible for that. Well, anyway, yes, I'm sorry, I've gone off on one a bit. Excuse me for that, but it's something I feel very deeply about, and the Muslim community now, of course, the what you call the convert community now is I mean, in those days, it was very, very, very rare to hear of anybody else being Muslim other than the few of us who were in London at that time. Now, of course, there are many, many, many more. But it's very important that the Muslim community takes on board their responsibility for making the people who become Muslim welcome, and for teaching them and for giving them space in order that they may deepen their Islam, and by doing that, call the other people in this land to the deen of Allah. Anyways, Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair for your wisdom, Sheikh. Next, we have Sheikh Bilal Brown. By way of introduction, Sheikh Bilal is a BBSI council member. He's the director of New Beginnings and 2023 awardee of the BISCA Award for Education and Teaching. Sheikh Bilal is the author of this guidance. So, Sheikh, would you like to give us some reflections on the guidance that you've published?
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. The intention, well, I offered the guidance, but a lot of people helped out with that guidance, with input. I should mention Saleh Wellborn from Mu'alif Initiative as well. He gave me some good feedback when I wrote it as well, which some of it I applied and others I didn't. And some other people have inputted small amounts. So that's the first thing. And the guidance isn't exhaustive. It's not an exhaustive guidance, because it would be quite detailed in that case. But my intention was really just to get people discussing conversion to Islam in the UK and the process of the Shahada in particular, and just to raise awareness really about it, and just to start some conversations going about it, and try to give some good advice, what I've experienced myself. Currently at New Beginnings, we're probably having somebody say the Shahada every single day with us. so we're quite busy with that, and I just wanted to highlight some good practice around that and get a discussion going about conversion to Islam, and how we can facilitate it better for our new brothers and sisters in the faith. So that was my intention, and again, it's not exhaustive, and hopefully this can be a starting point for us to publish further guidance or further toolkits in order to enable the Muslim community to better deal with and be better equipped when somebody wants to embrace the faith of Islam.
Jazakallah khair. So what we're going to do now is open up the floor to questions. For those of you who are joining us online, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, we are able to see your comments. So if you have any questions or any comments that you'd like to share, please do type them in for us, and we will address them as they come. We also have some questions that have been curated ahead of time. So I'll start actually with the first question that we've already had in the chat, which is from Andy Ashby. And he asked, to what extent do the panel think that the original ethnocentric mosques, which were needed to serve those fledgling generations, are now a barrier to multicultural converts in the UK? This is an interesting question. Sheikh Bilal, would you address this?
Yeah, Sheikh Abdul Haq's probably better position to answer this, but
he's rejoined
I think
us,
yeah,
so
it can be a barrier.
I pressed the wrong button. I'm sorry.
No worries. Alhamdulillah, you're still with us.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I mentioned in the guidance is to take into account the cultural needs of the new convert to Islam. We've had people who've converted to Islam, and then somebody said, "Oh, well, you need to start wearing shawar kameez now. You need to go off and get circumcised," and some of those things are not necessary. Obviously, some of them are recommended practices, but probably not the right time to say it when somebody's just new into the religion. And then changing a name as well, that's something else that I've mentioned in the guidance. And there's no requirement upon a new Muslim to change their name. I think we need to think about whether we should encourage that or not, and what kind of impact it would have on the new convert's family as well. If they just suddenly change their name and then they start requesting the family members to call them by a different name. I think we need to think more about the impact that has. Many years ago, it was probably standard, and people who converted to Islam, like myself and Abdul Haq, it's just probably a standard procedure that we change our names. But something that we need to think about, definitely.
Well,
so
certainly recently, I mean, I've met many people who've become Muslim. Well, there's Amanda in front of us, who haven't changed their names, and I've certainly. And although, as I say, you're quite right. When I became Muslim, it was considered almost obligatory to do that. I remember the sheikh in Fes, when I became Muslim, he insisted on me taking a Muslim name at that time, or in fact, he gave it the name Abdul Haq. But I'm certainly there is no need to. And there are many Turkish Muslims who have Turkish names, or people in other parts of the world who have names that come from their own language and own country, and have nothing to do with having, as it were, a Muslim name. We could do that. So I mean, there's no harm in that at all. I'm sorry, I didn't get the question either. What was the question?
I'll go back to the question now. It was, to what extent does the panel think that the original ethnocentric mosques, which were needed at the time to serve the fledgling generations, are now a barrier to multicultural converts in the UK?
Well, I did say a little bit about that. I think in what I said before. I think some are and some aren't. I've been in some mosques where I really felt unwelcome. and I've been in others where there was a great deal of acceptance and welcome. So it's up to the people of that mosque to realize the place that they're in, and that they are somewhere where people will be interested in Islam and will come and visit them, and they have to be open to that. So the time for the club mosque, I think, is past.
Alhamdulillah, yes. We have a second question, which is from Abrar Afdal, who asks, could you briefly outline what is included in the guideline?
Bilal?
That's, yes.
Yeah, so the guidance, it's just focused on the Shahada, really. So I'm not going to the details about giving support to converts and what that entails, and because that's a lengthy topic, and it needs to be looked at holistically as well, because each convert to Islam is going to be different. So you need to, be able to cater for such a, vast array of needs. Yeah, there'll be people coming out of prison. There'll be people that are, married, or there'll be people that come from Hinduism. They have different, challenges in their community converting to Islam. There'll be young people, older people, wealthy, poor, people that are threatened being kicked out of the house. So they have all these vast array of needs. So it needs to be looked at holistically. So the guidance, it just focuses on the Shahada. What is best practice for us to do before the Shahada? So if somebody comes to you, they say, I want to convert to Islam, I want to embrace Islam. Okay, what should we do at that point? What's the best practice at that point in time? So before the Shahada, preparing them for that, and that first point of contact, and during the Shahada as well, how we actually conduct the Shahada, like Sheikh Abdullah Hassan is speaking about. There seems to be this misconception that we have to perform the Shahada in Arabic, whereas theologians in the text explicitly state there's consensus amongst Muslim imams that it doesn't have to be in Arabic. It doesn't have to be in Arabic. So sometimes it can be awkward for the person as well. And you'll find some people, they want to do it in Arabic, and that's great. We can do that, but we shouldn't impose it on people. And sometimes you find there's an awkwardness. People are trying to pronounce the Arabic and do the Shahada as well, when it's not necessary. So small things like that are not necessary for us to do. We can look at those things. And then after the Shahada as well, he speaks about what kind of practice we should implement after the person has said the Shahada. Okay, and there are safeguarding issues and mentoring as well, like Sheikh Abdul Haq has mentioned. It's not, many of us, I've seen that, everything is about the Shahada, whereas the Shahada it's an event.
So it's a doorway, it's a gateway.
It's a gateway into Islam, and Islam is, a long journey of ups and downs and a long process. But many of us in our community, we seem to be obsessed with just the Shahada. Like we had 6 Shahadas this week, we had 5 Shahadas. But what happens after the Shahada? It's not just about getting the person to say the Shahada and then, they're left to their own devices, like Sheikh Abdul Haq, mentioned. There has to be proper structures in place. So focus on those 3 areas in brief. Please do read it, and please share it as well amongst friends and families. It's not just for imams and scholars, and practitioners, but just a general layman as well, a general Muslim. You're gonna, eventually, most of us will meet somebody who will say, I want to become Muslim in our lifetime. I think at least once in our lifetime, whether we're practicing or not practicing, or I think most of us will eventually encounter that. So I think it's important for people to understand the guidance and start these conversations as well. start this conversation about what's the best way to welcome our new brothers and sisters to Islam.
We have a question from Brother Martin Harrison in the comments. He said, convert care / mentorship is specialist work. Converts themselves are best placed to offer this support. There are many organizations throughout the UK already doing this work. How can the heritage Muslims and mosques best support this work? Sheikh Abdul
I would have
suggested this.
Go on.
Sorry,
Sorry.
Sheikh.
I was going to say, but neither of us are in that position really to be able to answer the question.
I would object that the statement converts themselves are best placed to offer this support. It's not always the case. Sometimes converts themselves, they've been through certain processes and they've been around heritage Muslims as well, and sometimes they're not best placed to offer that support. But they may have an understanding of what it means to come into the faith, but they're not always best placed. And,
also, there are different kinds of support, some of which will be better, often obviously given by people who've been through the process of becoming Muslims and had to face what that means in this country. But also there's a lot of knowledge and experience from people who've been Muslim for a long time that needs to be conveyed to people who become Muslim. And people who haven't been Muslim very long may not have the same kind of knowledge that enables them to do that. Also, there is something to be said for learning the Fatiha from someone who knows it well than someone who finds it difficult themselves. So yes, and the pronunciation may not be that good. I've discovered over the years that the mistakes made at the beginning often remain for a very long time. So it's best to learn from people who really know when you went in the first place. I think that. I think that may be your namesake Bilal asking that question.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good work. There are organisations in the UK doing good.
May Allah reward Martin Harrison for all the work he has done over the years. I will say that.
Yeah, mashallah. Mashallah. I think the heritage Muslims and mosques, they need to reach out to those organisations and work with them, and give them support in, because it is specialist work. And like I said, somebody who's new to Islam may have, a vast array of needs, and each convert to Islam is going to have different needs. So it's about knowing where to draw your line. I know that, maybe I can support in organising social events, at Eid and just meeting up or for coffee and chats, but I don't have the skills to teach a new convert to Islam. Maybe somebody has the skills to teach, but they don't have that social knowledge. Maybe somebody has the skills to teach, but they don't have any background in counselling or psychotherapy or to recognise when the person actually needs more support. So if everybody does what they're capable of doing, and everybody knows what their limits are when it comes to this work, sometimes what you'll find is the individual try to take on everything all at once. This person said he shahada with me. Now I need to do everything for them. I need to find them a job. I need to find them a wife. I need to teach them Fatiha. I need to teach them to pray. I need to sit down and listen to them and counsel them. And you'll get burnt out by doing that. So it's about referring them on to people who can cater for those needs instead of trying to take it on all yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, and also for the person who becomes Muslim, if you can't overload them either, so that needs to be understood and done as a gradual process, so that people will pick it up and in an organic, natural way, so that it becomes part of them and they really grow into it, and it's not kind of forced on them in any way. Otherwise, it rebounds.
Yeah, absolutely. So our teachers say that if you are calling people to Islam, then you need a lot of knowledge. but you need twice the amount of knowledge as twice the amount of wisdom as the knowledge that you'll possess. So
Would it be all right if I added something?
Yeah.
As much as you like, Amanda.
Barakallahu feek. I was just thinking, because Brother Martin has specified here about mentorship, convert care and mentorship. And I would agree with him. Mentoring, you can't mentor somebody in something you haven't done yourself, by definition of the word, right? And it's not teaching. It's different from teaching. So I do agree with him that, you know, converts who are experienced, who are well-adjusted, who are trained, make the best mentors, in my experience. But what can the mosques do? In my experience, I mean, for those, I didn't introduce myself, but I am a co-founder of a Muslim support organization in South Wales. And in my experience, the mosques tend to be quite precious about their converts, quote unquote. People who take shahada with them, people who come to their halaqas, they're quite possessive about that. And they don't like the idea of converts going elsewhere for knowledge or for mentoring. This way of thinking needs to be examined and reflected on, I believe, because these are adults and they're Muslims and they have agency, and they're not, you know, they don't belong to any one mosque or to any one organization, just like anybody else, just like anybody else in our communities. And I think that needs to be sort of, that way of thinking needs to be adjusted, and signposting needs to happen. So when somebody comes to take shahada in the mosque and they join the halaqah and the prayer courses and everything in a particular mosque, but you haven't got other converts who can mentor them, signpost them to those who do. And that way we can all work together and we can really sort of maximize the different skill sets that each organization has, inshallah. We do have some other questions. So Nasira Alam says, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam. What are your thoughts on creating other spaces for converts that aren't necessarily sacred spaces within a masjid? Oh, interesting. So sort of third spaces, as it were.
Who's going to go first? Yeah, well, my thought is, well, we do that anyway. We do create those spaces that are just for converts, and I think it does need to be done in the initial stages. So what we hear from a lot of people who convert to Islam is that there's a lot of anxiety. Even after they've said the Shahada, there's still a lot of anxiety about going to the mosque. And, you know, it takes them, you know, a lot to build up the courage just to step foot in the mosque to begin with. And, you know, at the mosque, they're going to meet anyone and everyone. And, you know, there's always a risk of them having a negative experience. You know, so we've had sisters going to the mosque, first time, just converted. She goes to Friday prayer in the women's section, and then, you know, some other woman says, oh, you know, your scarf is like this, and, you know, your hair's showing a bit, and they start going on about other things. So I think it's important for us to create those spaces just for the initial stages. It's not to segregate new convert Muslims from the rest of the Muslim community. That's not what we want. But they need to be gradually, you know, integrated into the Muslim community. Just like a newborn. I don't like to really use that example, but you have a newborn baby. You know, you don't just throw them in, you know, before they can walk and so on, as the cliche goes. So one of the things we found is that by empowering them with knowledge, by teaching converts that are new to Islam, just the basic, what we call fardain, basic individual obligatory knowledge, and they feel empowered, like, not my religion, I know the pray correctly, and I know the Fatiha and everything, and I believe, confidence, give the confidence, and then they naturally will, you know, integrate with the wider Muslim community. But I think, you know, that those initial stages, definitely, I think it's a good idea to have separate spaces where they can feel comfortable, they can feel, feel themselves. They don't feel that, you know, everybody else knows more than me, and I'm shy and I'm afraid to ask a question. I might look silly, and so on.
A couple of things. When the Prophet ﷺ, when he went to Al-Madinah, he established first of all the mosque, but then he established a market alongside the mosque. And it's very important for people to become Muslim to realize that Islam is not confined to the mosque. It's not like when you're a Christian you go to the church and that's basically where it is. In Islam is in every part of one's life, and so, you know, these other spaces are not spaces that are outside Islam at all. They're spaces that everywhere is. Prophet said that the whole world was made a mosque, was made as a mosque for me. So you know, in one way, it's restricting people's understanding of Islam to make them think that it only happens in the mosque. It doesn't happen it happens in every environment. Islam is expressed, and so I mean, that's an aspect of Islam which when people become Muslim, that they should realize. Certainly, I mean, when we became Muslim, it wasn't through a mosque; it was through another kind of environment, and those environments are very important to have, where people can easily can come to them easily. I mean, in Leeds, there's a group and they meet in a coffee shop. And it's it's a meeting that's entirely connected with being Muslim, but actually it's having coffee together and really enjoying the time. So all of those things, I think, absolutely, they're very important that these other spaces exist where people feel free and easy and can discuss Islam in a way that isn't constricting in any way. Yes, so that's what I would say about that.
We've just had a comment pop up from Yasin Sheikh, who says it's very difficult to transition people into the wider community once they get comfortable with third spaces. What would you say to this?
What do you mean? I don't understand what that question was. What's the wider community?
I think what he's implying is that if we create these third spaces for converts, and then they get comfortable in those, they become complacent in that, and then they won't integrate into the wider Muslim community. They'll just stick with other converts as a comfort zone.
I haven't found that to be the case myself at all.
No, I have to admit, neither have I. In fact, just the opposite.
Yeah,
Giving them a safe space.
No,
I mean,
builds confidence.
Because once you're confirmed and established in your identity as a Muslim, then you can go anywhere. Then you don't feel. But it's that first time when there's a lot of, you know, uncertainty. Then you need to become established in that identity. Once you're established in that identity, then you're free to, and people do feel free to join Muslims anywhere, I think.
Sheikh Badal, did you want to contribute to that?
yeah, I was just going to say that, you know, I've not found that to be the case either. Rather, what's happened is they've gone and, you know, integrated into the wider Muslim community, or even made their own spaces as well. So we found with some of our students is that they set up their own circles, inviting people to Islam and non-Muslims, and it has like a popcorn effect. So we've not found that to be the case whatsoever.
Just refocusing our talk on the guidance itself. So Andy Ashby has said, Jazakallah khair for answering his first question. He's asking now, is the BBSI looking to expand on this new guidance into a series of guidance? Is this a completed work? Is this planned for? What will happen going forward with the guidance?
From my understanding is that it's an ongoing work. Obviously, you know, as Bilal said before, it's not, you know, that it isn't completely comprehensive. It's not set in stone. No, and the certain suggestions have been made and it will be expanded and hopefully as suggestions come and feedback comes, then other points will be added so that it becomes more and more useful. as time goes on. I mean, it's your guidance, so you would know better than me in a way about that.
Not necessarily the BBSI, but I think I personally will be working on a toolkit for the wider Muslim community. But like I said, my intention was just to get some discussion going about this topic and raise awareness of it as well.
Well, hopefully that will feed in a little bit to the BBSI.
Yeah, definitely. We'll feed in some way. But there's a lot more.
So the BBSI guidance becomes fuller and better and covers more ground than it does at the moment.
Yeah, and I've just had a message emphasizing that, yes, the BBSI will be expanding this as well, inshallah. So, which is good to hear, because as Sheikh Bilal said, it's very much sort of a version 1, I think. We have an interesting question here. Our sister Barbara has said we have local groups associated with, oh no, sorry, I've skipped to another question. Okay, she's asked, Salam alaikum. I'm part of several local mosque groups in Kent, which include reverts. Do you recommend formalizing these various groups in an umbrella organization for reverts across the country? And then to follow up, she said, we now have local groups associated with mosques in Dartford, Gravesend, Medway, Maidstone, Canterbury, and Ashford, but no umbrella organization connecting all these communities.
Bilal, you have more experience of this than I have, I know.
I don't know how to answer it really. I think it might be challenging to connect them all to one umbrella organization, especially if the mosques of different schools of thought or different practices, and it may be challenging for you to do that.
Personally, I mistrust umbrella organizations as a general rule because I mean, it's much better to let things grow organically and have people from each of these places meet one another and so on, rather than try and create some body or organization that's going to unless there is some legal reason for having one. I don't think there's any point in doing that.
I think what they should do is have more communication between one another, if possible, and liaise with one another more.
Yeah.
Liaise with other organisations that are doing the work in the UK, and discuss best practice. That would be good. But trying to gather them together as under an umbrella organisation may be difficult. But as long as they're doing the good work, and as long as they're doing it according to the Sunnah, not creating barriers for people, that's great. That's great. We need more organisations in in every area, in every mosque. It's fine. It's fine to have that, as long as they're doing the work properly. That's all.
I think I mean, there is something to be said for becoming for people who become Muslim, becoming aware of other people who become Muslim in a larger way than happens at the moment, because there isn't any way that we really know what the community consists of, and it would be better, but I don't quite know how that's going to happen. Hopefully it will happen gradually and organically over time.
Brother Andy has commented, inshallah, I hope you might consider the Convert Muslim Foundation to help with your ongoing work. I mean, Convert Muslim Foundation does excellent work. I would say for any smaller groups around the country, I have set one up myself. It is about networking, not necessarily having an umbrella organization to dictate how we work and have that top-down organizational structure, but some sort of very loose, casual networking facilitation, so that we can share best practice.
Sorry, yes. I think probably networking is the key word. In fact,
yes.
That's a good word.
Yes.
I myself have to go now. If you will excuse me.
Jazakallah khair for joining.
Very much, and thank you so much for overseeing this, Amanda, again, and Bilal. Good to see you here, and see you there rather. Hope you have a good tarawih this evening in one of the mosques. Well, what city you're in?
I'm in Marrakesh, so
Marrakesh,
should
all
be
right. Anyway,
yeah,
Alhamdulillah, you got it.
the
Anyway,
Kutubiyya, inshallah.
inshallah. Okay, wonderful. So anyway, assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much.
Barakallahu feek.
Wa
Wa
alaikum
alaikum
salam
salam wa rahmatullahi wa
wa
barakatuh.
rahmatullah. God bless you.
So Sheikh Bilal, we can continue on for a little bit longer, inshallah. We've got some good comments coming through. So the Convert Muslim Foundation has been mentioned, and then Brother Martin has mentioned that there are many existing Islamic umbrella organizations in the UK. However, none of them seem to be promoting convert welfare or give a voice to the needs of converts. May I respond to this one?
Yep, go ahead.
So yes, this is true. Although, I mean, I work in my day job, I work for the Muslim Council of Britain. My role there has nothing to do with the fact that I'm a convert. It's all media based. But some of my colleagues have made initial plans on how to better serve the needs of converts and so on. However, we found that there were existing organizations such as the Convert Muslim Foundation already doing the work, so I duplicate it. And it's more about, their job is more about promoting the existing organizations. So it's not that it's being ignored, but it's that it's already there. And so why duplicate it? Why, there's no point in copying it and replicating it in that sense. However, if you have any suggestions, feel free to get in touch with me. I am on Facebook, and you can message me if you want me to pass any messages on to the organization.
And the Convert Muslim Foundation, they have set up convertcare.org. Is it convertcare.org?
Yeah,
where it's a directory of organizations that are providing support to new converts to Islam. So they've got that huge directory on there of all the different organizations in the UK and all the different activities they're doing. So that's a great start as well.
So our brother Yassine has actually commented, oh, mashallah, he's joining us from the States. Okay, so what we've observed here in the USA is that third space has become a culture and clique in itself away from the wider Muslim community. There is a danger of that happening, and I think we do have to be mindful of that, maybe. I've had that comment said to me as well, but I'm not sure that in reality it actually happens, because at the end of the day, the third spaces are not mosques, and we have to attend mosques for certain things. So
maybe the US is different as well, because Muslim communities are very spread out there, whereas the UK is fairly small. And for example, in my hometown there are something like 46 mosques and Islamic centers. So even if you create a space, there'll be no escaping the Muslim community where I live. So maybe the way the US's layout is a cause of that. I don't know.
I think that might be very much part of it. Martin has commented, the MCB have a louder voice than all the other convert organizations and are strongly affiliated with the mosques and Islamic institutes. In terms of, if you mean in terms of raising awareness for the wider Muslim community on convert care, I would agree. But in terms of reaching convert Muslims at the grassroots level, I think most convert Muslims aren't really aware of Islamic umbrella organizations. I mean, yeah. I know, Martin, you have my contact, so you can get in touch. I think this might be something that we could discuss more about how the MCB, and I'm definitely happy to feed it back, how the MCB can help to amplify what's happening to local communities. We have some other questions that aren't from the chat. These are things that were curated earlier. And of course, if anybody else wants to pop questions into the chat, you can. We'll be here for a few more minutes. But Sheikh Bilal, we have a statistic that keeps getting bandied around amongst convert care organizations about the number of people who take the Shahada and never end up becoming practicing Muslims. And we hear 40 to 50% of people who take Shahada either leave Islam or just never become practicing Muslims. And of course, this is worrying when we hear it, because we don't want people coming and taking Shahada and then nothing comes of it, so to speak. So a couple questions. Would you say that this is a fair statistic?
What was the statistic?
40 to 50% of people who take Shahada, 40 to 50% of people who take Shahada never become practicing Muslims.
So they mean by practicing that, they expect them to be praying 5 times a day, wearing the hijab fully, and I assume
beard, short trousers, the whole,
the full shebang. Maybe, if that's what your definition of practicing is, then maybe that's right.
Well, that was the first question. How do we define practicing?
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we become too obsessed with the ritual aspects of Islam, and we forget that practicing means showing kindness to your neighbor, being fair in your transactions, your business transactions. How many people are praying 5 times a day, but you sit around backbiting, or they're engaged in riba and fraud, and they tell lies and all these other things. So practicing is obviously much more than just the ritual aspects of Islam. But that's one of the things that I did mention in the guidance, that we should expect every single person that converts to Islam to be an imam or wali, a saint, and to be fully practicing. We don't have that standard for the non-convert community, so we don't really expect that standard from the non-convert community. And we know that not everybody's going to be fully practicing Islam.
And having that expectation is quite a lot of pressure as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure on somebody who is new to Islam, and that's probably one of the reasons why people do leave the faith, because it's too much pressure and there's this drastic change. Remember, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Mecca, and you can see this through the Quran and the Meccan chapters and verses of the Quran. The focus was on solidifying belief, solidifying Tawheed, solidifying your belief in the hereafter, perfecting your character. Okay, just look at all the verses from that period and what the focus is on. Okay, so that was the first 13 years of Islam, and very little legislation is being revealed at this time. So even the prayer, was, in the latter parts of the Meccan period, it wasn't obligatory up until then. So there's a wisdom in that. Okay, like say that Aisha, she says, if all the legislation was just revealed on us at once, then we would have disbelieved. Okay, so that's something for us to reflect on and think about what our focus should be when somebody first converts to Islam, and also allowing people to grow at their own pace. Okay, without putting any pressure on them, even pressurizing people before the Shahada as well. We shouldn't pressurize people into saying the Shahada, or, if you don't say the Shahada today, you might pass away in the night and go to hell if you don't say the Shahada. It's not a very inviting, and people in the UK especially, they do not like to be preached to. People
culturally,
in the UK,
yes.
Culturally, they don't like people preaching to them. They like to do things in their own time. They like their freedom. They like to feel that they've made that decision themselves. So it's our duty just to facilitate that for them in an easy manner, in a welcoming manner. And yes, there will be people who never become the perfect practicing Muslim that convert to Islam, and that's something that we shouldn't feel uncomfortable with, and we have to accept as well, just like we accept it from the non-convert community.
I think one thing that I always think when I see this statistic, 40 to 50%, is I think how many of those people have taken Shahada, become overwhelmed, and decided, I'm not ready for this, taken a step back, and in 3, 4, 10 years, they come back and they're praying again, and they restart their journey. I personally know a handful of sisters like this, and I'm sure those of us who work in convert support know many such examples. And
absolutely.
But if it's a heritage Muslim who this happens to, they've grown up Muslim, they're not feeling it for whatever reason, they go off, they have fun at university, and then as they get older, they come back and they start practicing. Nobody suggests that they've left Islam. But when it's somebody who's taken Shahada and then takes a step back, we instantly think, oh, have they left Islam? And I think that that's a very unfair assumption as well. You know, we should allow people that journey, you know, we're allowed to zigzag on our journey, I think is one way of saying it. We have another question.
Absolutely, yeah. The scholars, you know, according to one school of theology, your iman goes up and down. Iman is something that has increase and decrease. So, you know, that's something that we should, you know, expect from people. You know, iman is never at a constant, according to, you know, the majority of theologians.
Tony Wellborn has just chimed in with, the only way to find balance is to zigzag. I would agree with that. SubhanAllah. We all zigzag at some point. Brother Yassine has said, what suggestions do you have for social programs and activities for converts, as many feel isolation post-Shahada? I think this is where mentoring comes in, isn't it? And support groups. But what kind of activities, what kind of programs?
Yeah, the most common grievance, I think, from converts to Islam is that feeling of isolation and loneliness. Even if they're in a Muslim community, you know, there was a brother the other day actually posted something that some organization, they held a revert iftar. So this was an iftar for reverts, and he says, I went there and I was the only revert there. I was the only revert there, and everyone just sat looking at each other. Nobody said anything. Nobody was talking to each other, and you know, I just felt so isolated. So he's in the setting, he's in the group, but he felt lonely and he felt isolated. And then somebody actually asked the imam there, you know, this is, you know, revert iftar, but there's only one revert here, one convert. And he said, oh, it doesn't matter. His imam said, oh, it's not important. You know, so I think the most important thing is connecting them to other converts to Islam. Okay, whether that's through Eid parties. Eid can be a very lonely time.
Yes. Yeah.
So definitely, you know, if you can have some type of Eid event, which is that there needs to be some type of exclusivity, that this is only for converts. Otherwise, we get situations, what happened with the brother, where it gets overrun by heritage Muslims, non-converts, and you know, it becomes another barrier. So, you know, I think have e-parties that are exclusive for converts to Islam. Doesn't need to be anything, you know, religious based. You can be going out for dinner, you know, once a month, or having a movie night, or just meeting up for coffee, just connecting them. So you try to bring them together. So I try to bring those new Muslims together, and you know, the type of activity that's, you know, entirely up to you.
With regard to the,
and if they feel part of something, you know, they feel more comfortable in Islam.
Sorry, you broke up there for a second. I was going to say, with regards to the exclusivity issue, don't you ever find that this gets criticized quite a lot?
Yeah, it does, and it's not something that we like doing, but we found that it's more effective. It's a lot more effective, and it is a necessary practice actually. So we found that that's the best way. Just for those initial stages, it is the best way.
One way that we've overcome the issue of what happened with the reverts iftar is when we advertise it. We've had, new Muslim Club iftars over during Ramadan, and we've advertised it as that it's for converts/reverts/new Muslims and their friends and family. So they can invite somebody who is a heritage Muslim, no problem, but not bringing in, not just opening it up to everybody. And we're quite careful about it. So yes, it is gatekeeping in a way, but if we don't do this, we find, like what happened to that brother, the same things happen, and it is really unfortunate because it doesn't alleviate the issue at all. We have another question. Oh, Carrie, our sister Carrie has said, for my quick read, the document looks like fantastic guidance, well written. Jazakallah khair to all involved. Barakallahu feek. That's excellent feedback. And then somebody's asking, how do we comfort converts who become worried about following every single fiqh issue detail very early on in their journey out of fear that it would become burdensome for them? Again, this is where the mentoring comes in, isn't it? Having that experience and wisdom.
Yeah. When you're dealing with people who are new to Islam, it's important for you to actually know a vast array of opinions. So trying to restrict them to one school of thought. Obviously, if you're teaching them, you're going to have to pick one school and teach them that school. But if you find that there's ease for them in a particular scenario and that's in another school, then really you should be mentioning that to them, especially if it's in their day-to-day interactions, even in worship as well. Okay, they're new to Islam, so we want to make things as easy as possible for them. And some of them, yes, they will get eager to try to learn every single detail, but you just need to reassure them and encourage them to, slow down. It's not a race. It's a marathon. Okay, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And just remind them that the Messenger of Allah said that if you try to take on this religion all at once, it will overpower you. So it's not that we want to hold you back. We don't want you to feel overwhelmed with Islam. It can get, overwhelming. So just encourage them to take things step by step, I think.
I think perhaps one of the best pieces of advice given when I was a very new Muslim was focus on learning how to pray. And until you've got that down, don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about your hijab. Don't worry about your food. Don't worry about your money. Don't worry about, just focus on learning how to pray, because that's a lot. And we do worry. We do worry about haram. We do worry about sinning. But it is a lot learning how to pray. But subhanAllah, if that's your focus, the rest of it just comes naturally, it seems. And I think that might be something that might be something that the brother could say to people who are getting, obsessive about details and fiqh issues, is just focus on learning how to pray. The rest of it is extra layers, really.
Yes, it's good advice. Or eat just one thing at a time. So, pick one thing at a time that you're going to focus on and try to implement that, and then move on to the next thing.
I would like to ask, does the guidance touch on issues of poor mental health amongst converts, which seems to be something that there isn't a lot of guidance on?
No, it doesn't. It's just focused around the Shahada. So before the Shahada, and after the Shahada. So, the poor mental health is like very post-Shahada guidance. I haven't gone into detail about that because it, like you said, it is something that is holistic. We need to look at so many different areas, and it becomes very lengthy. So it's just focused on the Shahada aspect, really. So the
Okay.
guidance does touch on those things.
And I've just had a note, actually, I've just been made aware that the BBSI has a mental health toolkit. So that would be an excellent resource. With the issue of the Shahada, now in the guidance, you do talk about how some people come to Islam through existing relationships, through their partner being Muslim and so on. And if somebody comes to take the Shahada and it's clear that they are in a non-marital relationship with a Muslim individual, how should that be handled at that time?
I think with some caution about how sincere they are in their belief in Islam. So I put in the guidance, you can ask them, about the pillars of faith, etc. So, for example, there was a guy, it was a couple of weeks ago actually, he got in touch with us at New Beginnings. He says, I want to convert to Islam. So I said, okay, how did it come about? He said, oh, I've got this this girl that I'm with, and she's Egyptian, and I can't touch her unless we get married. So I started asking him about, basic beliefs of Islam, and he was quite open. He's like, I don't really know anything about the religion. I want to do this, and so I gave him some advice, some things to read. He didn't know anything really about Islam. And they said, how long have you known? And he said 4 weeks, only 4 weeks. So I think we need to be cautious about that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay to go over the articles of faith, especially the Prophet Muhammad and who he is, and make sure that people understand that and understand what converting to Islam entails. Not to put them off, but just to make sure that they understand what they're doing and what it means to be a Muslim. But if that is the case, then it's not for us to judge whether a person is sincere or not.
Well, many times we have sisters come to take Shahada and they are in established relationships with Muslim men. They might have children with them. They're living together with them. They're not married. And they come and they want to take their Shahada. And you can see in the Imam's face, there's an internal conflict going on. Would you have any suggestions as to how to deal with this?
Yeah, so obviously they can, but what I found is mostly they get married very soon after.
Okay.
So I found mostly that they'll say the Shahada, they get married very quickly after. So I think people know that Islam only permits intercourse via marriage. People know that and understand that. So you usually find that. And you've had cases as well where it's happened. People have already been in a relationship, they say the Shahada with us, and then they get married. I've done a few marriages myself as well. I've facilitated some marriages myself. So there's no harm in that whatsoever.
But would you mention it at the time of the Shahada that this is something that should be done ASAP?
I think I wouldn't mention it to the person who's converting to Islam, but I'd mention it to the partner who's Muslim. So if the partner is Muslim, already Muslim, I'd probably mention it to them, but not to the person who is converting.
Okay, Jazakallah khair.
So it can be a bit awkward and sensitive, and if you like, now you need to get married, whereas the heritage Muslim already knows that anyway. So you just reminding them, really.
Yes, absolutely. And for those who are asking, the toolkit, the link to the mental health toolkit has now been posted in the chat as well, so you can access that. I think we don't have any more questions popping up, and we're nearly at time. So perhaps now is a good time to wrap up. Sheikh Bilal, did you want to say anything or address anything else that we haven't covered?
No, that's it. Just do share the guidance with friends, family, mosques, imams, different Islamic organizations. So just share it, with people. Start some discussions. You can start your own discussions as well about the guidance and how we, approach facilitating the Shahada and facilitating the care of new Muslims as well. And I think it's good for each one of us who are listening to this webinar to discuss best practice with, the mosque, the local mosque or institute. If you've already got something that's going, it's about seeing how can we make it better.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do that will be better, and just try to give our new brothers and sisters the best possible experience as they can.
Absolutely. One question, will this webinar be available online afterwards, after we finish, to watch back so that it could be shared with people who weren't able to join us?
Yeah, so it will be available on BBSI Facebook page,
Yes.
the YouTube channel as
YouTube.
well.
Okay.
So it's there for people to watch, inshallah.
Brilliant. So perhaps for those who are joining us as well, sharing this broadcast as well with people, as well as the guidance itself, might be a really good way to facilitate discussion and to have questions. And are you going to be taking feedback on suggestions for future edits?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Any feedback, any suggestions, any collaborations as well. If you want to work
Excellent.
together to produce something in the future, we welcome it.
Brilliant. Barakallah feek. Well, we will leave it there then for this evening. Jazakallah khair to everyone who joined us on the panel. Two of them have had to leave, unfortunately, Sheikh Abdul Haq and Sheikh Hassan and Sheikh Bilal. Jazakallah khair for authoring this and for getting it out there. MashaAllah, I'm sure it'll be very beneficial to a lot of people, new Muslims and heritage Muslims who support new Muslims. And to everybody who's joined us online, thank you so much. Please do spread the word. Please do download the guidance, share it with your communities, and get the discussion going, inshallah. We'll leave it at that. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa